You do everything right, and it still goes wrong. That's what we're going to talk about in this next Bible study. I'm Patty Baker, and welcome to this page channel. We're glad that you're here. This started about, 9 years ago. We put together a Facebook page that's now turned into a multi-social media platform. We have a great little team here that helps keep me rolling, and we were doing content every Thursday evening on Facebook, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And now we have shifted gears as a team because we're preparing to go out and minister in downtown Philadelphia in June. And so we are pushing out content as fast as we can. Primarily, they wait on me because I'm the one building out the content and putting the videos together. So I appreciate your patience, but we probably won't be doing Thursdays on Facebook anymore at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. But when they drop, and we're hoping to do that every week. Let's dive in to what Bible study is all about. If it's your first time joining or if you're returning, glad you're here, both of you. And we look at the ancient texts, the collection, anyway, of ancient texts that have been bound together in a book that is called the Bible. And we learn through the spiritual journeys of others who came before us so that we can gain wisdom and understanding and insight into our own lives as we're on our own spiritual path. So if you're ready to think and reflect and grow, let's dive in. I'm going to tell you where we've been. The book of Acts. We're finishing up this chapter and should be done here in the next couple months, maybe, I'm thinking. We've landed in Acts 27, and we've gone through the first 38 verses. So if you haven't been around at all, or you haven't been around for a minute, or you just need a refresher, let me dive into that now. We are looking at the life of Paul. He is sent as a prisoner to Rome. And the reason why he is, because he's requested to appeal to Caesar in a trial rather than stand before the Jews in the Sanhedrin, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who had already schemed up a plan that they were going to kill Paul on his way to the Sanhedrin for their trial. And he said, you know what, I'm a Roman. I'm going to appeal to Caesar. And that's exactly what he did. So as this crisis continues, Paul boards a ship, and that eventually is now pushed out off course for 2 weeks due to an incredible storm that came up that he warned everybody as a prisoner who's going to listen to a prisoner. I don't think we should go, because this time of year, storms brewing. And so anyway, the crew and the ship owner and the ship captain, they all are on board for this ship to continue. It's a grain ship, probably from Egypt. It's going up to Rome. It's got about 276 people on it. And they've lost all sense of themselves. They haven't eaten. They can't find land. The boat is a wreck. They've put a rope around the rudder. They've offloaded some cargo. And where we were in the last study was over in Acts 27, where Paul, we see him. He's not a superhero, okay? But he is a steady man in the storm. And while others had authority by title, Paul had gained influence and obviously an ear because of his clarity, his calmness, and being correct under pressure. So in crisis, people stop following position and they start following people who are stable and have peace and clarity of mind. And so that's one of the things that we talked about last week. And then we saw that Paul then urges everybody before dawn, because they think they're pretty close to land, and based upon throwing out some anchors, that they should probably begin eating. grab something to eat. And so Paul publicly gives thanks for the bread that's on the ship. And, that just wasn't something spiritual that he did. It was very, very strategic. We talked about that last time, that gratitude often calms the chaos. When we come from a heart of gratitude and thankfulness on the outset of where we are headed in conversation, in situations, that it reinforces where our trust comes from. And that's what Paul was exemplifying here. So before the outcome has even happened, he's already giving thanks for something. And that modeling also instills confidence in everyone for what's about to happen. And when he ate first, he broke the bread, gave thanks, ate it. The others followed. And it's showing that people don't just follow instruction, they follow by example. And so we talked about that last time also. And finally, after they were strengthened, they threw the remaining grain overboard. The wheat had value, but it couldn't save the ship. And so this teaches us that in some seasons, survival requires letting go of what once seemed essential. And sometimes we need to do that in our own lives. So that's kind of where we were last week. Let's dive in now. Acts 27, verses 39 through 41. I'm reading out of the ICB, which is the International Children's Bible. I think it's a good, common English version that's easy to understand. And so I like to read through that, and also a few other translations as I'm studying. But I really do appreciate this one for its simplicity and clarity. When daylight came, the sailors saw land. They did not know what land it was, but they saw a bay with a beach. And so they wanted to sail the ship to the beach, if they could. So they cut the ropes to the anchors and left the anchors in the sea. Listen, this is the same as the grain, right? Those anchors are really important, because a couple of weeks ago we saw how these anchors were being used to test the depth of where they were. And as the depth was getting shallower, they knew they were coming to land. So I love the fact that they're also continuing to size up where they're going. And this lightens the ship, right? Raises it up out of the water so that as they're coming into shore, that they can get in as close as they can. These sailors were going to jump ship on a lifeboat here the night before. They were like, hey, we're going to throw out a couple more anchors. We'll be right back. They're lowering the lifeboat. And Paul said to the soldiers, hey, those guys are leaving. And if they do, nobody's surviving. Why? Because they were essential to the functioning of this ship for the life of everybody. And so we have a moral responsibility to that. And so we talked about, not only does survival require skill set, but it also requires character. So we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So now they're throwing grain off. So at the same time, they untied the ropes that was holding the rudders. Again, that was something to keep that ship from going back and forth. They tied it so that it wasn't, just trying to mitigate the movement of this ship. And now that's not needed, because they're going to go ahead and try and use these rudders to steer themselves in. So the sailors then raised the front sail into the wind and sailed toward the beach. But the ship hit a sandbank. The front of the ship stuck there and could not move. Then the big waves began to break the back of the ship into pieces. One point from this account that I want to highlight in this study is that what stabilizes you in one season can slow you in another. These sailors acted decisively. Like we knew, like you can hear, then we did this, then they did this. And Luke is writing this account. He's on the ship with Paul and a couple of others who are traveling on to Rome. So Luke, a physician, schooled, learned, writing, he's giving the details of what these sailors were doing. And they cut the anchors, they untie the rudders, they raise the sail, they move towards shore. I mean, they're doing everything that they can. There's no hesitation in this. It's done very methodically. And nobody else on that ship would have been able to do what these guys were doing, which is why it was so good that Paul called out that they were trying to flee through the lifeboat. The sailors were needed. And they also had the strength to do it, because they just ate just before dawn. And they broke bread. And of course, they hadn't eaten probably in a couple of weeks. When you're in fight and flight mode, things like digestion, your body doesn't do. It just doesn't. And the other thing, unfortunately, is they're probably seasick, right? I mean, they're rocking and rolling on the ocean here, on the sea. So they don't even feel like eating. But now they've eaten, they're strengthened, and now they're moving with some purpose. They stayed together, they followed the plan, and the ship is destroyed. After all of that. Are you kidding me? And this is critical. Don't miss this. Obedience does not always mean that you preserve the structure. Now that can land in a whole lot of scenarios in our lives, but think about that. Obedience, doing the right thing, does not always preserve the structure. There are seasons where we can do the right thing, say the right thing, stay committed, follow through, have patience, and still lose. And still lose the structure, still lose the system, still lose the job, still lose the spouse, still lose your child, still lose your health, still lose your finances. It's not a failure. It's often a transition. And I think too often we see when bad things happen to good people, although devastating, it's a gift in a lot of ways. And I think we have to be in the middle of it to have the right perspective for it. I was married to a man who had thyroid cancer that metastasized to his lymph nodes, and he developed lymphoma. Never smoked, but it metastasized into his lungs, and he had lung cancer. Ultimately, it went to his bone, and he had leukemia. And when he passed away, a couple of days before the Facebook page launched, where we were I was going to answer questions that people were bringing in and doing Bible study. He never got a chance to see that. And it was something that I was thinking about doing, that he was supporting me wholeheartedly during the time. But you can do everything right and still miss it. And I remember him saying, every day that I wake up, I'm a two-legged walking miracle. And this cancer has actually been a gift because it's allowed me to see life where it is. Now, there were a lot of other things that weren't functioning well, relationally, health-wise. But I valued where he stood in that, which is sometimes you can do everything right and still get cancer. Sometimes you can do everything right to go to all the treatments and do everything and still run out of options. And sometimes you can do everything that you can do and still lose the relationship. And nobody gets out of here alive. But it's a miracle when we can wake up and see the rising sun. So ask yourself, Are you moving out of fear or out of wisdom? Because see, that's something that happened here. Just because something breaks doesn't mean you were wrong to stay. But how do you know when to stay and when to go? Like, when do you stay and when do you jump ship? Right? That's the real question, is whether you know the difference. And if you're not careful, you'll call fear discernment. And you'll call wisdom avoidance. So how do you actually work through that when you're in the middle of a situation, whether it be work, finances, the kids, school, relationship, your community? Look at your driver. What's driving you? Is it fear? Is it your ego operating out of fear and so you're protecting yourself? Like the sailors did? They collectively were protecting themselves. They're like, this ship's going down. It's got grain on it and some prisoners. Who gives a shit? We're gone. Because we can at least navigate ourselves in this boat and there's not enough for everybody here. Let's roll out. But ultimately, was that really the right thing to do when they had the responsibility? And we talked about the flight attendants in the air. Do they just save themselves and who cares about the people on the plane? No, they have a responsibility. And that's what was happening with the sailors, which is why the soldiers cut the lifeboat off and they stayed. But yet, the ship is still being destroyed. And we'll find out next time if they survive. But when you're in the storm of your life and you do everything that you can and it's still sinking, how do you know? Like, do I get out? Do I stay in? And fear says, get me out. I have to protect myself emotionally, my image, my money, my kids, my whatever. And clarity says, this is not right. Those feel familiar, but they're not the same. The other thing to ask yourself, should I stay or should I go, is how do you know when you're operating out of fear and out of clarity, fear out of wisdom? Are you moving towards something? Or are you moving away from what you fear? Leaving should have direction. It should not have relief. If your only motivation is, I need out, then you're reacting. If it's, this is no longer aligned, and here is the next right step, that's you responding, not reacting. So, and perhaps this is something you can come back to it and write it down, right? This is at minute 18:45 or so. But ask yourself that. Are you operating out of fear or out of wisdom? And don't allow your ego to supersede what's going on. Your flesh will always kick in, but your spirit knows clarity. What's your driver? Fear or clarity? Fear or wisdom? Are you saying, get me out of this, or something's not right here? And then are you moving toward something, or are you just getting out of it because you have a fear for it? Have you stayed long enough to do what's right? And I think a lot of times we get stuck in situations because we haven't fully asked ourselves, have we done enough to do what's right here? A couple of weeks ago when we studied Acts 27 verses 31 to 32, that's called Survival Requires Both Competence and Character. You can look that one up. the sailors weren't wrong to feel the danger of this ship isn't going to make it and want relief on a lifeboat. But they were wrong to abandon their role. So ask, have I shown up fully here? Have I done what is required of me? Or am I trying to exit my responsibility before it's complete? And I think when we begin to ask those questions, we have to get honest. I mean, are you being honest? Because the sailors left secretly. They didn't say, hey, there's not a lot of us. We can easily get out. Hey, just want to let you know, we have the lifeboat. We're going to go ahead and cut it, and we're going to go on ahead and see what's going on. Something. Like there was no direction. They were just like, we're out. Now, that would be my red flag. Now, I realize that if your plan requires deception, that's not wisdom. That's fear managing things and protecting your image. The right decision can stand in the light. It really can. The right decision will stand in the light. And I think another question to ask is, what is the cost to the others? When you're looking at making the decision to stay or go, are you operating out of fear or wisdom? What is the cost to others? Because leaving isn't just personal. If I step out, who all is impacted? That's very forward thinking. A lot of people, when they go through divorce, they will go through that process. Who else is going to be impacted? And is leaving going to cost everyone? Or is leaving a strategic move in order to emotionally protect everyone, physically protect everyone? Like what are we doing? And how is that cost for the whole? That doesn't mean that you never leave, but it means that you can count the cost honestly. Honestly. Relationships. You witness an accident. Do you stay or do you go? Do you stay and make a statement, or is your life just too important that that person who is now unconscious, you're the only one who saw the accident, you just leave? You call 911? Like, what's your responsibility? And to what extent? And how does your decision impact everybody there, whether you're related to them or not? In order to decide whether to stay or go in a situation, sometimes is that quick, because that's how fast accidents happen. But other times it's a slow build over time, because there's been inconsistencies at work, relationships. Maybe a boss has been fired. Something's happened in the school. Now you're having to really rethink where you are. So in order for you to sit to make the right decision, you really ultimately have to be anchored internally. Too many times we go out and get public opinion, and that doesn't help us. It really doesn't. Many times it confuses us. So check internally. When you sit with the decision, are you anxious? Are you reactive? Are you overwhelmed? Well, then you're really not in a good place to decide. You're just not. You don't make exit decisions out of panic like that. You stabilize first, and then you decide. You put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you go helping everybody else. Stabilize yourself. And I think here's a clean framework to wrap this up, so that you can decide if you should stay or go in a situation like these sailors did. because here they are. They were going to leave anyway because they knew this is not looking good. But then their exit plan was ruined by the soldiers and they had to stay, which was good that they did because of the role and responsibility that they had. But ultimately, it ended in a crash and burn anyway. The ship is being destroyed on a sandbank no less. They're not going to make it to the beach in the bay where the waters are calm. Even though they did everything right, it still got destroyed. When to stay and when to go, because the outcome doesn't make a difference. If you stay, good. All right, then you're doing that from a place of understanding. If you go, good. You're doing that from a place of understanding, but it can't be fear-based. So you stay when you're still assigned the responsibility to stay. You're acting from a place of clarity. There's growth in this for you, even though it's hard. And you can remain honest and you can remain present in it. When do you go? There is a clear misalignment or harm. Not all of us are going to be on a ship that's sinking, but we may be in relationships that are. We may be in a company that's going under. And if there is a clear misalignment, whether it be physical, emotional, or mental harm, deep financial, you're going to lose your job, you're going to need to go. And is there a responsibility that has already been fulfilled? You've done all that you can do. And now maybe you're being violated in some way, shape, or form. And you need to go. You need to go if the staying requires you to compromise your integrity. And you need to go if the decision can be made openly and not secretly, unless somebody's got a gun to your head, or that has the potential of happening. Something else that would be severely life-threatening like that for you, your children. But you don't leave because it's hard. You leave when it's no longer right. If you don't get anything else out of this study, these sailors stayed because the soldiers made sure that they did, because it was the right thing to do. They were doing it in the secret of the night. They told them one thing, they told everybody one thing and went and did another. And you don't leave because it's just hard. Life's hard. You leave one situation, guess what? God's going to find another way to put you back into it. Because this life journey is a school for us to learn in this meat suit we have on. We leave when it's no longer right. And if you can get that internally into the spirit of your being, your decision, as hard as it may be, will still be the right thing to do. That helps separate your fear or your emotion from wisdom and discernment. So in closing, we often believe, if I do the right thing, then everything will work out. No. We can do the right thing and everything still fall apart. And you stay when you're still assigned the responsibility. You're acting from a place of clarity. There's growth in it for you, even if it's hard. And you can remain honest and present in that moment. but you cut, sling, load, and go when there's a clear misalignment or out and out dangerous harm to you. And the responsibility for you has been fulfilled or it's been violated. And it requires you to compromise your integrity. You need to go. And when the decision can be made openly, you need to go. Be honest. Next week, next time, we're going to talk about how fear can make people who lack righteous character see responsibility as a risk. A lot of times we will protect our self-image, our ego, because we lack righteous character, because we come from a place of self-righteousness. And again, that's not spiritual driven, that's ego driven. And how quickly people will save themselves in a conversation, in a situation like this one. How people will quickly save themselves at the cost of others. Righteous character is the inner integrity that aligns with our emotions, our thoughts, our decisions, and then the actions to what is righteous. Regardless of pressure, regardless of fear, regardless of personal gain, it's the right thing to do. So we're going to look next week or next time how people with self-righteous character protect themselves, their jobs, public perception, even if it costs someone else emotionally, mentally, and physically. So until we meet again, may what we learned here today soften your heart and feed your spirit and renew your mind and guide your steps. God bless you.